Okay, this is lesson 1.3, subtracting integers with tiles and number lines. Before watching the recording, please make sure that you have this worksheet in front of you along with a yellow and red highlighter, pen, pencil, crayon. If you're using anything other than yellow or red, could you just make sure that you make a key for yourself so that you indicate which one is representing positive integers and which one is representing negative integers. So if you need to pause the recording to get those items, please go ahead and do so now. I'm going to continue. So the first part is a review of what we looked at when we were adding with integer tiles. So positive integers can be represented using yellow tiles, and negative integers can be represented using red tiles, okay? So a zero pair is going to be represented with one of each. And this is, again, another key concept to apply when you are subtracting with integer tiles. So when you have a zero pair, you've got +1 and you've got -1. That's why you have 0. So neutralizes. So make sure you have those copied down. Okay, so when we're subtracting integers with tiles, I know some of you might want to jump ahead and switch the signs. What I mean by that is you want to switch it to an addition equation. I'm going to tell you now, you cannot do that with tiles because that's not an accurate pictorial representation. Why we teach you how to subtract with tiles is so that you understand why the signs are being switched, okay? Because I know growing up, my math teacher never told me, oh, you just switch the signs, but I was never told why, and I accepted it. So working with tiles gives you that deeper understanding of why the signs are being switched. So anyways, having said all that, I want you to write a note up here saying don't switch the signs, okay? Only with tiles though. With the number line, it's different, but this is why we do tiles first. Okay, there are going to be 3 different examples of tiles, and the situations are slightly different, so you have to think carefully about what you're doing. The first example, you have 2 signs that are the same. So you have a -6 minus -2. So what I want you to write down here is same sign, and you have enough. Okay? Do not overcomplicate an example as you see it in number 1. And I'll show you why in a second. Okay, so I know that when you added with tiles, we asked you to label the integer with each row that it represented. But when we deal with subtracting with tiles, it's different. So you can just go ahead and you're going to look at that first integer and go, how am I going to represent -6? Well, I'm going to draw 6 red tiles, and you do the same, right? To represent -6. Okay. Now, if you can see in the second part, you're subtracting -2. Okay, you have -6, and you want to take away -2. Do you have enough to take away -2? Yes, you can because it's the same sign. That's why you have enough. So you just simply cross out -2, and your answer is -4. This is the most straightforward example with subtracting with tiles. However, like I said, if you look at number 2 and number 3, it's easy to get mixed up with number 1 and overcomplicate it. So I'm going to rewrite here, -6 minus -2 equals -4. You have the same sign in this example, and you have enough to take away. That's the first example, okay? Now, the second one, and I'm going to rewrite it here because my page has been cut off. You have -6 minus +2. So I'm going to write down -6 minus +2. Okay? So a few things that you should note. First thing is that this time you have 2 different signs, right? Okay? You have 2 different signs here, okay? Which means that the process is going to be different. So I want you to write down here as a note, this time you have different signs. And then you need to bring a guest to the party. Actually, it should be bring guests to the party. What do I mean by that? You'll see in a bit. Okay, you have different signs because you have a -6 and a +2, and you need to bring guests to the party. Okay, similar process as above. You're going to start off with -6, so draw out your -6 tiles. But this time you need +2, right? So I have no positive tiles at all, okay? So naturally, what I would do, I would draw in +2. But remember, because of 0 pairs, you've actually changed the value of what this represents. Now, don't draw anything here. I just want to show you. Right now, this is actually showing -4 because you've brought in those +2 yellow tiles. Now, I want you to think to yourself, what do I need to do so that I am keeping the value of -6, because that's what I want to start off subtracting from. Now, I'm going to erase this part here. What you have to do is, this is where I mean to say you're always bringing guests to the party, because to truly preserve the value of -6, you have to add in 2 more red tiles. What I mean to say is partners to the party here, okay? So you're bringing in 2 red tiles here. Now notice, I'm just going to go here. Now notice, and don't copy this down yet. Now notice what you're left with is still -6. You've preserved that value, okay? So whenever you bring in the opposite sign, you have to bring in and match in all of the 0 pairs, okay? So now what you can do is you can take away +2. Now copy that down. You can take away +2, okay? What you're actually left with at the end is you're left with -8. Okay, let that sink in for a bit because you may be confused at this point, which is totally fine. Confusion is good, okay? And it will come with practice. Don't worry if you don't understand it yet. -6 minus +2 equals -8. This concept of bringing guests to the party, meaning the 0 pairs, is really key. Okay. I'm going to move on to the third example. And if at any point you need to stop and pause the recording and replay it again, please feel free to do so. Okay, this is our third example, and it's slightly different from the other two as well. So it says subtracting +2 minus +10. So this time you do have the same sign, true. But notice that +10 is bigger than +2, so you actually don't have enough to subtract. So make a note here that you have the same sign, but not enough. Okay, bring in the difference and guests to the party. Okay. You have the same sign, but not enough in this case. And then what you're going to do is you're going to bring in the difference and you're going to bring in the guests to the party, meaning 0 pairs. So similar concept as in number 2. Okay, start off with representing +2, which I have here. Now, because it's the same sign, you just need to bring in the difference to get to +10. So you're going to add in 8 yellow tiles. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. At the same time, you always bring guests to the party when you bring in more to add to that first integer. Notice I'm bringing in right away the 8 red tiles because, like I said, the idea with that, why you bring guests to the party in those 0 pairs, is you always want to start off with representing the first integer you are subtracting from. Notice our representation right now. This is showing +2. Okay. Again, you always want to show that first integer yet you are starting the subtraction from. Notice our representation right now is showing +2. Can you take away +10? Yes. So you're going to cross out all of the yellow tiles. This is where the guests of the party come into play a lot. So you're actually left with -8. So again, +2 minus +10 gives you -8. Okay, let's recap the 3 different examples. Okay, so the first one, you have the same signed integer, but you have enough to subtract. This is the most straightforward one, but also the one that gets overcomplicated. The next example, you have different signs. So we said you have to bring in the 0 pairs and bring in guests to the party, and then you can subtract. Why? Because you need to make sure you're always representing that first integer in the equation. Finally, with number 3, okay, you have 2 of the same sign, but you don't have enough to subtract. So you're going to bring in the difference, and then you're still going to bring in your guests to the party. You're going to bring in your 0 pairs again, because you want to make sure you start off with that first integer you're subtracting from. So those are the basic principles of subtracting with tiles. Please watch video number 2, part 2, on subtracting integers with number lines.